Donald Trump's chances of winning the 2024 presidential election is surging. He is currently at a 64% chance of victory to Kamala Harris at 36%. This is his highest point ever on PolyMarket. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at who is favored to win this year's presidential election according to the betting markets, as well as who is favored to win each of these 50 states. Now for some context, since Joe Biden dropped out of the 2024 presidential election, this year's election has been extremely competitive. Both sides have had a roughly 50% chance of victory in the last 3 months or so, with neither candidate exceeding 55% according to the betting markets, at least before around 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Trump started to open up a pretty small lead, and now it has exploded to almost a 30% advantage. Now let's start off by filling in the safe states for both candidates. Now if you didn't know, a safe state is characterized by the fact that PolyMarket gives one candidate at least a 95% chance of winning that state. So let's start off with Donald Trump's safe states. Starting off here with Donald Trump, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Montana, Nebraska's at large, 1st and 3rd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri are all considered safe states for Donald Trump, as well as the states of Alaska and South Carolina. Now let's fill in the safe states for Kamala Harris. So Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, DC, Maryland, Delaware, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New York, Maine's 1st District, Illinois, and I believe that's it for Kamala Harris's safe states. So Kamala Harris is at 167 and Donald Trump is at 125. Now going for the likely states for Donald Trump. These are states that Donald Trump has between an 85% and 95% chance of winning, according to PolyMarket. Now if you look at 4 of these states here, I'm going to be talking about the states of Iowa, Ohio, Florida, and Texas. They uniformly give Donald Trump a 94% chance of winning in each of those states. So if you want to look at them, the state of Texas here, 94% chance, Florida, 94% chance, Iowa, 94% chance, and Ohio, 94% chance. Now all of these states voted for Donald Trump by between 3 and 8% margins in the 2020 presidential election. And these states are certainly not expected to be competitive in 2024. Not going for Donald Trump and his final likely congressional district, Maine 2nd, he currently has a 93% chance of carrying that district, and thus it would be considered likely Republican. Not going for some of the likely Democratic states I have not characterized yet. In total, Kamala Harris has 5 likely states, the states of Colorado, New Mexico, New Jersey, Maine's at large, and Minnesota. This does boost Kamala Harris up to 208 electoral college votes, but still behind Donald Trump, who is at 219 electoral college votes. Now so far, these states that I have characterized don't really require much analysis. However, for the states going in the future, these states will be the ones I actually analyze. Now I'm going to get Nebraska's 2nd District and New Hampshire out of the way. These are all states and districts that has a 83% chance in the state of New Hampshire and 84% chance in Nebraska's 2nd case of going for Kamala Harris. I don't believe that these states will be super competitive, and they're going to go for Kamala Harris, and they're also like smaller states in terms of geography and population, and I'm not going to go into much detail in those states. The remaining 8 states are the ones I'm going to analyze. Now starting off here with the state of Nevada. In the state of Nevada right now, according to PolyMarket, this does give Donald Trump about a 65% chance of victory. That's roughly in par with his nationwide chance of victory of about 63.7%, according to PolyMarket. Now, historically, the state of Nevada has been heavily leaning towards the Democratic Party. That's because of the state's pretty dominant Hispanic population. Even in 2016, where Hillary Clinton essentially lost all of the swing states, you can see that in the state of Nevada, she was still able to win by 2.4% margin, which is comparably not bad at all. However, this time round, Kamala Harris's chances of winning the state, again, for the Democratic Party, are certainly kind of low. Kamala Harris's low chances of retaining the state of Nevada can be mainly attributed to 2 reasons. Firstly, the Democratic Party's universal unpopularity across many of the swing states as well as among independent voters. but noticeably in Nevada's case, the large Hispanic presence in the state of Nevada. Now, as you can see, about 2/3 of the state's population, if not a bit more of that electorate, does come from Clark County, which has a pretty substantial Hispanic population. In 2020, despite the overall popular vote trending towards the Democratic Party, the Clark County actually shifted Republican because of its Hispanic dominance. And in this election, where Kamala Harris is doing really poorly with Hispanic voters, that trend could show in Clark County, and when that materializes, again, Clark County being such a large population center, that could greatly diminish the Democratic winning margin in this county. As a result, if the Democratic Party does not win Clark County, which is essentially their voter base, they're not going to see great numbers in the rural areas, which are predominantly Republican. Thus, if Donald Trump is able to do really well in Clark County, he would be able to win the state. And that's what 65% of all shares do indicate about the state of Nevada. Therefore, the state of Nevada will be characterized as leaning towards the Republican Party, as Donald Trump's chances of winning the state are over 60%. Another state where the Republican chances are pretty high is the state of Arizona. In fact, they're much better than the state of Nevada. In the state of Arizona right now, you can see in a much deeper shade of red, Donald Trump has a 75% chance of winning the state of Arizona. Now, that would be a flip off of 2020. Joe Biden was able to win the state of Arizona in 2020, being the first Democrat in 24 years since Bill Clinton won the state in 1996 to end up carrying this crucial battleground state. However, this time round, Democrats do certainly face major challenges. That is due to the particular uniqueness of the electorate in the state of Arizona. Now you can see here Biden won the state by about 11,000 votes. And that's because there's a lot of McCain Republicans who are definitely more on the conservative end of the debate, but respected John McCain far more than Donald Trump, decided to vote for Joe Biden in 2020 because they were not able to stand Donald Trump. However, they are still fiscally, as well as in many social issues, conservative. And this year's election is quite unique because Joe Biden is the incumbent and he's not running for a second term, and many voters are frustrated about the economy. Additionally, Arizona does border Mexico, and its immigration crisis is indeed significant. And since these are kind of like the top two issues across the state of Arizona, of course the Democratic Party would face an uphill climb to convince some of those voters who see their grocery bills way up, who are concerned about immigration, to vote for the Democratic Party a second time. Now, another problem Democrats do face in Arizona is because of how the population is distributed. About 60% of all Arizonans live in Maricopa County. And guess what? This is a very, very historically Republican county that has trended away from Donald Trump. However, since Joe Biden is the incumbent in office, voters will judge his conduct. And since a lot of people are not so satisfied due to the economy, and because Donald Trump left office 4 years ago, they're going to be more inclined to vote for the outsider, in this case Donald Trump. And thus, Trump is favored to win the state of Arizona by a wide margin. Right now by about 50% according to the betting odds. Now, another state that is quite similar to the state of Arizona is the state of Georgia. Currently in the state of Georgia, Donald Trump has a 76% chance of winning that crucial battleground state, which is even higher than the state of Arizona. Like the state of Georgia, this was a huge flip in favor of Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Georgia hasn't voted for a Democrat since 1992, and that was under special circumstances where Ross Perot, the independent/third-party Reform Party candidate, took 13% of the votes away. As Bill Clinton's own campaign conceded, if Ross Perot was not in this race, then George H.W. Bush would have won the state of Georgia. Thus, you can see that this was a very impressive win for the Democratic Party. And like the state of Arizona, there's a lot of very moderate Republicans in the state of Georgia. However, again, the state has been plagued by high inflation, and since Joe Biden is the current one in office, they're going to blame the Democratic Party and as a result vote for Donald Trump. You see, Kamala Harris also faced a unique obstacle in the state of Georgia: religion. Religious voters are generally more pro-life, while Democrats are more pro-choice. If you look at the most and least religious states in the United States, you can see that out of all of the swing states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, Georgia has the highest number of adults who consider themselves as highly religious. And most of these highly religious voters tend to be pro-life, which could be a problem because Democrats are always selling on the abortion issue. That plan would certainly be effective in a state like Wisconsin or Nevada, where the majority of voters are not quote-unquote highly religious. However, in a state like Georgia, that would not play as well, and that's another problem for the Democratic Party. Ultimately, Georgia is considered leaning towards the Republican Party, though it's important to note that the Republican Party has a greater than 3-1 edge in the state of Georgia on PolyMarket. The next state on this list here would be the state of North Carolina. North Carolina is the only state out of the 8 quote-unquote crucial battleground states that voted for Donald Trump in 2020. So starting from there, that's not really a good sign for the Republican Party because they really haven't lost any voters since 2020. And if Kamala Harris isn't able to peel off some of that Trump base or increase enthusiasm drastically, neither of those actions Kamala Harris has really been able to articulate on, you could see a problem for the Democratic Party. If they're not gaining new voters, they're of course not going to end up flipping states. And that's what PolyMarket does reflect right now, with a 70-30 advantage in favor of Kamala Harris in this state. As you can see, based on what we've seen, the state of North Carolina is considered a lean state for the Republican Party. And now next up, the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia is a much more liberal state as opposed to all of the remaining quote-unquote swing states. Right now, according to PolyMarket, Kamala Harris does have a 83% chance of retaining the state of Virginia. Now that's not great considering Joe Biden had about a 95% chance of winning in the state, but nevertheless, Virginia does still go in the lean Democratic column. After all, this was a state that voted for Joe Biden by more than 10% in 2020, so it's not expected to be competitive in 2024. Nevertheless, still a sizable number of people do believe that Donald Trump is favored in the state of Virginia. So that's an interesting thing to look at. If on election day, the state is actually really competitive, that would be the end of Kamala Harris right then and there. If Kamala Harris is able to win by at least 7-8%, then the race drags on. Now going to the 3 Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Starting off here with the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin is generally regarded as the most conservative of the 3 Rust Belt states, but it's also the state where Donald Trump has the least significant advantage of the 3 Rust Belt states. Now that being said, Trump still has a 16% advantage in the state of Wisconsin, which is more than sufficient for a lean characterization, for a tilt characterization in favor of Donald Trump. Now that is kind of because of the fact that the state of Wisconsin is of course less religious, which would make Democratic chances of winning the state higher because Democrats are trying to capitalize on the abortion issue. Additionally, Tim Walz is from the state of Minnesota, which does border the state of Wisconsin, which is why Democratic chances are slightly better in Wisconsin as opposed to Michigan and Pennsylvania. Nevertheless, Democratic chances of winning the state is still negative 16%, so as you can see, Donald Trump is still favored. The next state here is the state of Michigan. Michigan is out of the 7 most competitive states, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the state that had the most favorable result for the Democratic Party in the 2020 presidential election, with Joe Biden able to win the state by 154,000 votes over Donald Trump in the 2020 presidential election. That being said, this is still not a state where the Democratic Party can feel super confident. As you can see in PolyMarket, Trump has a 59% chance of flipping the state, which is certainly not great when this is supposed to be the bluest state of the 7 competitive states, where Donald Trump only needs to win 4 of them in order to become the next president of the United States. And thus right now the state of Michigan is a tilt Republican state, which does bring Donald Trump up to 293 electoral college votes. Now finally is the state of Pennsylvania. Now Joe Biden in 2020 was able to win the state by 1.2%. However, keep in mind that he wasn't a native son from Pennsylvania. He was born and raised in this state, an advantage that Kamala Harris does not share in this crucial battleground state. Furthermore, there has been some reports saying that Joe Biden is not happy with Kamala Harris, and those reports could further harm her in some areas like Monroe County, Lackawanna County, Northampton County, or Lehigh County, where there's a substantial working class population. A lot of those voters actually still approve of Joe Biden, and they're going to be upset with Kamala Harris over those type of remarks, and that's going to drop her chances down further. Additionally, on PolyMarket, Donald Trump has a 61% chance of winning Pennsylvania. That's better than Wisconsin and Michigan. And right now, just everything does not look too good for Kamala Harris. She can only afford to lose about 70,000 votes from the state, and she's not born in the state. Democratic turnout is low. Trump was nearly assassinated in Butler, Pennsylvania. That's going to really energize the Republican base. And all those issues snowballed just shows that Kamala Harris's chances of winning the state is really poor. And thus the state of Pennsylvania at this point in time is considered lean Republican. In conclusion, PolyMarket shows a pretty substantial advantage for Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential election, as he holds 312 electoral college votes to Kamala Harris at 226 electoral college votes. In conclusion, PolyMarket predicts a pretty substantial Donald Trump victory in the 2024 presidential election, as Donald Trump not only wins all the states he won in 2020, but also the states he won in 2016, in addition to the state of Nevada. And this is not really that surprising to me either. In fact, this map is essentially the same as my own prediction. I currently do have Virginia as likely Democrat, and the state of New Hampshire as likely Democrat as well, with the state of Wisconsin, I believe, as lean Republican. But aside from that, this map is essentially flawless, in my own opinion, and I'm not really all that surprised. People who end up betting on PolyMarket are people who have a high degree of certainty in their own predictions, because if they don't, just like stocks, they're going to end up losing substantial sums of money. And really, this is quite similar to my own prediction, because the people who kind of invest have their expertise, and I've been doing this for several years, so I've got my own little bit of experience. So thank you for watching today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe to my